Okay, want to know why Wake Winches cost so friggin' much? Stay tuned for all the hows and whys. Okay, welcome back to another video, everybody. I'm Sam Price from down here in New Zealand. I run a business called Oxsenterprises, and I make tug wake winches here. Now, probably the most common thing when people ask about wake winches is why do they cost so much? I don't think the average punter expects them to be priced where they are. This has been a genuine consensus, I think, from what I've seen from everyone everywhere in all parts of the world. Basically, all this video is going to tell you about is what goes into them, sort of a rough costing for down here in New Zealand. Down here in New Zealand, there has been 3 companies over the last few years dabbled in selling them, all running around 3,000 NZ dollars, give or take, so fairly consistent pricing. I think it's a good buy, most people don't. We'll run you through a few prices. First up is the motor. Now, we can't do anything without our motor. Most people down here use just the Honda knockoff or the Chondas, whatever you want to call them. I've looked up on prices up on Trade Me, which is our sort of New Zealand version of eBay or whatever you like. You're basically going to be able to pick up a brand new Honda knockoff motor for around 200 bucks plus freight, kind of anywhere. They're actually pretty cheap. That's considered very, very, very cheap. They're somewhat reliable, not as good as a genuine Honda, but certainly a pretty good unit. Torque converters. Now, some people use clutches. I would not use a clutch because they're only any good if they're fully engaged. We run torque converters on all the units. Again, you're looking around at about $250 for a sort of 6.5 horsepower torque converter. Very solid units, long lasting. Again, you can't do anything without that torque converter. A frame. Now, frames tend to differ across the board with construction materials. I build a composite drum. Now, this consists of marine ply coupled with fiberglass. It makes for a light, rust-proof, easy. Well, no, I'm not going to say easy to build, but quite cheap material-wise, although labour costs are higher to actually assemble this frame, but can be customised. I can't really say a price for a frame itself because it would probably vary hugely in terms of your setup. I believe the cheapest ones are like box section steel. Now, a drum. I myself here use a very highly machined alley drum that runs quite a pretty penny. You're talking over $500 for manufacturing for this unit. They are a massively solid unit, as well as quite light for what they are. Prices will vary hugely company to company. You could probably build one for relatively cheap, but they do have to be balanced and they have to be a strong unit because there's a lot of tension. People have problems with them crushing when the rope's pulled out and then brought in. People have had a lot of issues with it actually crushing the drum, so that's something to keep in mind. Another big part of the build. Rope. Now, to get 3mm Dyneema here in New Zealand, that's typically the gauge we use, I did a lot of ringing around here a year or 2 ago regarding this. The cheapest source at the time I could find was about 250 New Zealand dollars for 200 meters of Dyneema here. Pretty horrendous, really. I have since found what I'm hoping will be a good solid performing rope for much cheaper, but again, that is another considerable cost. If you add those things up, you're well over $1,000 of just material cost to this point. Fasteners. Now, to put it all together with bearings and all your bolts and all bits and bobs, you can find places online. I can't recall the place I use online off the top of my head, but you could go into any engineering shop, get all your parts. This isn't really too much of a cost. It's pretty good. I wouldn't worry too much about building that into the cost because it's really sort of not really too much. And then, of course, from a company's perspective, you're paying this company to do R&D on them. You're paying someone to put the damn thing together. You're paying for a profit margin. Companies need to make profit off product in order to be in business in the first place. So that is what a lot goes into these wake winches. That is why they cost so much, and of course they are a motorized toy. Nothing with a motor tends to be typically cheap. You need to probably adjust. If you think they're very expensive, you need to actually align them with motorized stuff like boats and jet skis and think along that sort of line, in which they're very cheap. They're not a $100 product like I think most people believe they're going to come in at, which is ridiculous. that is kind of the general consensus. Hopefully that explains a little bit of just what goes into them. As mentioned, I make and sell tug winches down here in New Zealand. I'll drop a link to a bit more info. We've got a couple videos up here. We will be detailing a lot more coming this summer, seeing it's coming into summer here in New Zealand. Hope that helps. I'm Sam Price. I'll see you at the beach.